It is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. Arthur Schopenhauer. From the moment you were old enough to understand words like achievement or ambition, the world handed you a story that said success meant having more than others, more money, more recognition, more power. They showed you a scoreboard and told you life was a race. If you ran fast enough, sacrificed long enough, optimized well enough, you would finally arrive. One day, they said, if you just keep pushing through, you'll cross a finish line where it all makes sense, where you can finally rest, where you'll finally feel like you've done enough. That was the promise. But there was something no one ever mentioned. The finish line keeps moving, because the game you were placed in was never meant to be won. There's no final lap, no true destination, just a system that keeps itself alive by keeping you running. In this game, your exhaustion isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's actually a sign that the game is working exactly as it was designed to. We weren't raised to question what we want or why we want it. We were trained to chase what others want and label it ambition. To pursue success not because it called to us, but because we were told to perform it for others. From test scores to job titles, from hustle culture to comparison on screens, we've been programmed to gauge our worth through others' eyes, to believe happiness lives just beyond achievement, and if we're tired, burned out, or feel lost, we assume it's because we're simply not trying hard enough. But what if that's not true? What if that exhaustion isn't failure at all, but a quiet signal, a gentle rebellion from your inner self, whispering, "This isn't it." Maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just human, and the real problem isn't your discipline or drive, but the structure of the game itself. Modern society worships motion. It doesn't reward depth, only speed. The faster you go, the more you're praised, until you lose sight of what you were even running toward in the first place. You start living on autopilot, chasing goals you didn't choose for reasons you can't quite name. You keep climbing, but the ladder leans against a wall that leads nowhere real. And even then, they tell you, don't stop. Because if you stop, the whole system shakes. So you keep moving. You stay busy. You stay productive. Not because it nourishes you, but because it numbs the question you've avoided for so long. What is all this really for? But maybe the answer doesn't live at the summit of some invisible peak. Maybe it only begins when you finally step off the treadmill and dare to question the entire game. Not out of rebellion, but out of honesty. Not because you've quit, but because you've finally awakened. You weren't born to be trapped in a loop of endless striving. You weren't made to be a machine, built for output, performance, or keeping the gears of society spinning. Your fatigue isn't your flaw. It's a kind of clarity. That disillusionment you feel, it's not collapse, it's the beginning of truth. What if the life you were trained to desire was never really yours? What if the version of success you've been chasing is just a script, a clever distraction from your own internal compass? And what if real success doesn't look like running faster, but like finally stopping? Having the courage to turn around and ask a different question. What game am I truly playing? And who chose the rules? Because unless you ask that, you'll keep chasing something that can never fulfill you. You'll keep calling the emptiness normal, but it's not. It's the signal that you're ready for something deeper, something more truthful, something real. You're not failing. You're waking up. If you've ever achieved something and still felt hollow, you already know this truth, even if you couldn't name it. You gave everything. You worked hard. You sacrificed. You reached the milestone that was supposed to change it all. And for a brief moment, it did. You felt the pride, the high, the reward. But then it faded, and almost instantly, your mind began looking for the next goal. A new title, a bigger house, a better version of yourself, as if that finish line was never really an ending, just another checkpoint before the next race began. This isn't your failure, it's the design. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this better than most. He saw desire not as fuel, but as the machinery of suffering. To desire is to reach, and the moment your hands touch one thing, they're already stretching for the next. This isn't about greed, it's about the nature of the mind. The second we satisfy one craving, another one takes its place. Endlessly, silently, relentlessly. And so we chase, not because we're broken, but because we were conditioned to believe that desire gives life meaning, that craving more is how we evolve, that ambition is proof we're alive. But what if it's the other way around? What if desire doesn't lift us, but enslaves us? Modern life is built upon this lie. Entire economies depend on your dissatisfaction. Your discontent isn't a bug, it's the system's battery. Every ad, every platform, every definition of success is crafted to whisper the same thing. You're almost there, just a little more. And so you delay peace. You postpone presence. You tell yourself you'll rest later, after the next milestone. But later never arrives. Because desire keeps you trapped in a future that's always one step out of reach. It pulls you away from now. It convinces you that fulfillment always lives just beyond the next horizon. And the more you buy into that lie, the less you're able to inhabit the only place life has ever truly existed. Here. We don't just desire things, we desire identity, image, validation. We long to become someone in the eyes of others. But that identity, it's a moving target. It shifts with the trends, with markets, with the ever-changing expectations of a world that never stops demanding more. You could spend an entire lifetime chasing a perfect version of yourself and never once meet the real you. And here's the cruel twist. Even success, especially success, can deepen that hunger. Because once you achieve something, you now have something to lose. And suddenly you're no longer chasing joy. You're guarding it, defending an image, protecting a reputation. And that fear, that tightening grip, only keeps the cycle spinning faster. Desire isn't the road to freedom. It's the leash that keeps you running in circles, always chasing, never arriving. And the more you want, the more disconnected you become. Disconnected from the present, from your own breath, from the people around you, from the quiet truths that don't need proof, only presence. And that fear, that tightening grip around your chest, only deepens the cycle. Desire doesn't lead you to freedom. It acts like a leash that pulls you in circles. You're always chasing, yet never truly arriving. And the more you crave, the more you disconnect from the present moment, from your own breath, from the people right in front of you, and from those quiet, simple truths that can't be earned or proven, only felt. Schopenhauer never set out to condemn all forms of ambition. Instead, he was unveiling a pattern so embedded we often fail to see it until the weight of our own wanting becomes too heavy to carry. And when it finally does, we're left with a quiet but aching question. When does it all stop? But maybe, just maybe, that's not the question we need to be asking. Perhaps the better question is this: what happens if I stop? Eventually, the chase starts to feel hollow. You begin to sense, in your bones, that no matter how much you achieve, something essential still feels absent. The ladder you've been climbing, rung after rung, doesn't lead to liberation. It leads to a more sophisticated kind of imprisonment. And the question you once pushed away, the one you buried beneath busyness, now refuses to be ignored. What if the entire game is flawed? Schopenhauer didn't urge us to abandon life. He challenged us to abandon the illusion that fulfillment is something to conquer, to capture, to accumulate like trophies. That success is measured by climbing over others, reaching some ultimate rung. That happiness is a prize only for the most productive, the most persistent, the most praised. But what if that very belief is the root of our misery? Because here's the truth. Most people don't crave success itself. They crave significance. They want to know their life means something, that their actions ripple, that they are seen, that they are valued, that they are truly alive. But instead of guiding us inward, we've been trained to seek that feeling externally, through applause, through admiration, through visible achievements. And so we begin to measure our worth by how high we climb inside a system we didn't create, using a scorecard that was never ours to begin with. But there is another form of success, one that doesn't require trophies or titles or an audience to validate it. It's quieter. It doesn't shine from the outside, but it resonates deeply from within. It's the kind of success that arises from self-respect, from inner alignment, from waking up in the morning and knowing, without a doubt, that you're living a life that feels true to who you really are. There are, in truth, two kinds of success. The first is the one society worships. It's visible, marketable, admired. It's engineered for display, not for depth. It thrives on performance. It demands conformity. It feeds on the momentum of endless striving. Yet for all its shine, it often leaves people feeling hollow, trapped in roles they never consciously chose. The second kind is much harder to put into words. It's not about being seen, but about seeing clearly. Not about having more, but needing less. It's about living in line with what actually matters to you, even if no one notices, even if no one claps. It's the quiet strength of being rooted in something far deeper than ambition. It's a sense of self that doesn't bend with every opinion, that doesn't crumble under pressure. And here's the paradox. When you finally stop chasing the first kind of success, you create space for the second kind to appear. When you stop performing just to be accepted, you begin to uncover the person behind the performance. When you stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I know to be true?" your life begins to feel like it's actually yours. Schopenhauer wasn't inviting you to run from the world. He was inviting you to step out of its illusion, to see that the never-ending pursuit of more isn't the road to peace. It's the very thing pulling you away from it. He knew that true freedom doesn't come from reaching the top. It comes from realizing you were never meant to climb that ladder in the first place. So maybe success isn't about adding more to your life, but about needing less, about no longer being held hostage by restless desire, about learning to live from the inside out instead of chasing approval from the outside in. And maybe the most radical, most powerful decision you'll ever make is to stop playing a game that was never designed for your well-being. Because if success really means stepping out of the illusion, then maybe it's time to ask, why was the illusion built at all? Here's the truth, and it's not an easy one. Modern society wasn't built to set you free. It was built to make you functional. You were never meant to become yourself. You were meant to become useful, to fit in, to perform, to produce, to keep the machine running. From the moment you entered this system, it began shaping you to serve it. You were taught how to follow rules, how to sit still, how to compete, how to obey. And as you grew older, the language changed, but the demands didn't. Now they call it professionalism, performance, productivity. But beneath the surface, the system keeps repeating the same command. Be efficient, be impressive, be what we need you to be. The idea that your life could truly be your own, that you could live on your own terms, was never really part of the plan. You were conditioned to believe that happiness comes only after usefulness, that if you work hard enough, earn enough, climb high enough, then and only then will you be free. That once you finally have enough, Then you'll stop, you'll rest, you'll breathe. But enough is a moving target, and freedom in this system is always promised, yet always out of reach, because the longer you chase it, the deeper you become entangled in the machinery. Yes, you climb higher, but each new rung brings more dependence, more responsibility, more fear of falling. The very system that promised you liberation has quietly made you terrified of letting go. Schopenhauer saw it all with chilling clarity. He understood that society isn't powered by peace, it runs on desire. It needs you to want, because the moment you stop wanting, when you stop needing to become someone, prove something, or chase some image, you become dangerous. You become unpredictable. You become uncontrollable. So the system keeps feeding you dreams. It hands you the script for the good life. The house, the title, the lifestyle, the image. It parades successful people in front of you and says, that could be you. But the closer you get, the more you see the real cost, not just in energy or time, but in silence, in truth, in self. The most powerful tool of control isn't violence, it's belief. The belief that your value is tethered to your output, that your identity must be earned through endless performance, that if you're not producing something measurable, you don't matter. And this belief goes so deep, it embeds itself in your own psyche. You begin to monitor yourself. You feel guilt when you rest. You feel anxious when you pause. No one has to pressure you anymore, because now the system lives inside you. And here's the bitter irony. The more successful you become within the system, the harder it is to walk away. The rewards increase. But so does your dependency. You build a life on top of expectations you never even chose, and now you can't move without risking the whole thing collapsing. That's not freedom, that's captivity disguised as accomplishment. Schopenhauer understood this deeply. He knew that real freedom doesn't come from collecting more. It comes from needing less. It comes from seeing through the illusion and stepping away from the script, not to escape life, but to reclaim it, to stop being a product of the machine, and finally, to become a conscious presence inside your own existence. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering why success feels so unbearably heavy, maybe it's because it was never actually designed to lift you up. It was designed to use you. And perhaps the first real act of freedom begins with no longer confusing your usefulness with your worth. Because the moment you start to truly see how society rewards usefulness over authenticity, something inside you shifts. You begin to realize how much of your life has been sculpted not by truth, but by image, by the pressure to look like you're winning, even when you're quietly unraveling, to project confidence, even when you feel completely lost, to seem like you've got it all under control when in reality, you're breaking silently inside. Here's the deeper truth. Most people aren't chasing a life, they're chasing an image of one. An image that looks impressive from the outside, one that earns claps, admiration, approval. But that image, rarely does it resemble anything real. We spend years constructing identities out of expectations, carefully crafted, polished, curated for public approval. We learn to say the right lines, act the right way, wear the right mask. And somewhere in the performance, we forget what our real face even looks like. But here's where something quiet and powerful begins to happen. At some point, the weight of the performance becomes too much to carry. The gap between who you are and who you pretend to be becomes too wide to ignore. And in that still discomfort, something new begins to grow. A different kind of success. Not one that's built to impress others, but one rooted in finally being honest with yourself. Because every time you choose truth over image, you gain something far more durable than applause. You gain integrity. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that steadies you when no one's watching. You begin to respect yourself not because of your achievements, but because of the choices you made to stay true. This is the kind of success that no one can hand to you, and no one can take from you. It doesn't come with medals or headlines. It's invisible to the crowd, but you feel it. You feel it in the silence, when you know you didn't betray yourself just to belong. When you spoke the truth, even with a trembling voice. When you stood firm in your values, even when it cost you something real. That's real strength. That's what real success tastes like. You won't always be understood. People might question your path. They may even call you naive or foolish for not playing by the rules. But that's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live a life that feels real. To you. And here's the irony. The moment you stop trying to impress, you begin to connect, not with everyone, but with the right ones, with those who recognize something in your honesty, because they've felt it too. Authenticity has gravity. Unlike image, it pulls the real toward the real. Schopenhauer knew this truth deeply, that so much of our suffering is born from the urge to become someone, instead of simply being. The constant comparisons, the endless performance, the hunger to be seen, all of it traps us in a loop of never enough. But truth breaks that cycle. When you start living in truth, your worth no longer dances with other people's opinions. You stop being a mirror, reflecting back what the world wants to see, and you become a light, revealing what's real. That's the kind of success the world forgets to teach, the kind you must discover on your own. But once you find it, it stays with you, through rejection, through failure, through the fog of uncertainty. Because once you've chosen truth over image, you no longer require permission to feel worthy. You've already found something inside yourself that can't be taken away. Eventually, after all the striving, the performing, the endless proving, a quiet truth settles in. You're tired, not just physically. You're tired in your soul, tired of roles, tired of masks, tired of chasing goals that were never really yours, tired of standing on a stage that only claps for the character you play and turns silent the moment you show your real face. And in that exhaustion, something pure begins to emerge, not from effort, but from surrender, not from pushing, but from letting go. Because real success, the lasting kind, doesn't live in applause or titles or status. It lives in no longer needing to act, no more pretending, no more performing, no more chasing illusions that vanish the moment you reach them. Just you, living, feeling, doing, from a place no one else can reach, validate, or define. The world may still expect a show. It may still try to drag you back onto the stage, to convince you that you're falling behind, that you should want more, that you should become more. But once you've seen the machinery up close, once you've tasted how hollow it all is, you lose your appetite for pretending. You stop craving permission. You stop fearing rejection. You stop measuring your worth by how well you conform to roles that were never written for your truth. You begin to live as you are. You listen to the quiet pull of your inner voice. You say no, even when it costs you, and yes, when it matters. You stop asking what success looks like and start asking what feels alive. You create, not to impress, but because something in you needs to be expressed, and that's when it happens. A shift. You no longer feel like a product of the world around you. You feel like a presence within it, rooted, whole, awake, because the deepest kind of success has nothing to do with what you chase. It's not something earned. It's something remembered, something you return to. The part of you that existed long before the noise, before the pressure, before the mask. This is what Schopenhauer was pointing toward. Not escape, but essence. Not withdrawal, but awakening. He didn't ask us to run from the world. He asked us to stop being deceived by it, to stop mistaking noise for truth, speed for depth, achievement for meaning. And when the desire quiets, when the striving finally softens, when the illusion collapses, and you're still standing, still breathing, still here, that's when life finally begins to feel like it's your own. And here lies the paradox. You spent years climbing, struggling, becoming what the world told you to be, only to discover that what you were searching for was never up there. It was right here, in stillness, in simplicity, in the quiet moments where you meet yourself, without judgment, without agenda, without fear. When you wake up and realize you don't need to be anything more than this. This isn't the kind of success that everyone will notice, but it's the kind that fills you from the inside, the kind that stays, the kind that frees. So maybe, just maybe, the real measure of success is no longer how high you've climbed, but how honestly you live, how deeply you feel, and how fully you return to yourself again and again. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not being more than others. It's being wholly, deeply, and unapologetically yourself. And when that happens, there are no more roles left to play. Just truth, just life, fully, finally yours. Comment something you realized while watching this video to share with everyone. Thank you for watching. Walk your path with quiet strength.